I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. I'm Matt, a 35-year-old guy with a decent job in IT, a stable life, and a wife I thought was my partner in every sense. Her name is Lisa, and we've been together for nearly a decade. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I always believed we had a solid foundation. That was until I started noticing things that didn't sit right with me. At first, it was subtle. Lisa would come home late from work more often, claiming she was stuck in meetings or had to catch up on projects. I believed her. After all, her job as a marketing manager was demanding. But then I started noticing other signs. Small things like how she'd get defensive when I asked about her day or how she'd suddenly be too tired for intimacy when I wanted to connect. I brushed it off as the stress of work or maybe just a phase. But the gut feeling was creeping in, and it wouldn't let go. One night I got home earlier than usual. My routine was to check in on her, maybe surprise her with dinner. But as I entered our apartment, something felt off. The lights were dimmed and the TV was on, but Lisa wasn't in the living room. I called out for her, but there was no response. I walked to our bedroom, and that's when I heard it, laughter muffled but unmistakably coming from our room. I crept closer, my heart racing. As I pushed the door open, my world shattered. There she was, my wife, tangled up in the sheets with none other than Jake, my former cellmate, the guy I helped get back on his feet after he was released from prison. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. They were laughing and whispering, completely oblivious to the reality that was crashing down on me. "Matt!" Lisa shrieked, her face going pale. Jake scrambled to pull the sheets over himself, but it was far too late. The scene was burned into my memory. I felt sick to my stomach, a mix of anger and disbelief coursing through me. I turned on my heel and stormed out. I couldn't stay there, couldn't look at them. The betrayal was too raw. I spent the night at a friend's place, my mind racing. I couldn't believe Lisa would do this to me, especially with someone I tried to help. It felt like a sick joke, but the more I replayed the scene in my head, the more anger bubbled up inside me. I couldn't let this go without a fight. The next day I returned home, my heart pounding. Lisa was sitting on the couch, looking as if she'd spent the night crying. Her eyes were puffy and red, but I felt no sympathy at that moment. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She started with her excuses, claiming it was a mistake, that she was confused and unhappy in our marriage, but I wasn't having any of it. "You cheated on me, Lisa. You were in our bed with Jake. How can you even look me in the eye?" Her response was a mix of denial and guilt. It didn't mean anything. I was just trying to find happiness. I wanted to scream, to shake her until she understood the depth of her betrayal, but I held back. I wanted to be cold and calculated. A part of me needed to figure out my next move. The emotional impact of that day was overwhelming. I swung from anger to sadness, replaying memories of our life together. I thought of all the sacrifices we made, the late nights I spent working to support us, the vacations we took, the dreams we shared. None of it mattered to her, and it felt like a punch to the gut. As the days passed, I struggled to come to terms with what had happened. I kept asking myself what I wanted. Did I want to fight for our marriage, or was this betrayal something I couldn't forgive? I knew I had decisions to make, and they wouldn't be easy. In the end, I realized I had to think of my own well-being first. I felt like I needed to take some time to figure out what I truly wanted. After a few days of contemplation, I decided I would confront my feelings head-on and not let this situation dictate my life. I would find a resolution, whether that meant trying to salvage our relationship or moving on with my life without her. Reflecting on these experiences has taught me to pay attention to my gut feelings. I now know that trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. I can't tell you the right answer for everyone, but I can say this. If you feel something is off in your relationship, don't ignore it. It might save you from a heart-wrenching betrayal. As days turned into weeks, I found myself navigating a minefield of emotions. I had decided I needed to confront Lisa, but every time I thought about it, a wave of resentment washed over me. It was hard to look at her without feeling the anger boil up inside. I started to focus on my own feelings and what I wanted from this mess. I reached out to Jake, the last person I wanted to talk to, but I needed answers. I wanted to know how he could betray my trust so easily, especially after I had helped him. After days of debating whether or not I should contact him, I finally called him. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the anger bubbling just below the surface. We met at a diner near my place, somewhere public with enough noise to drown out the tension. As soon as I saw him, I felt a rush of emotions, anger, betrayal, but also a strange sense of confusion. I had once been his friend, and now he was my wife's lover. It was a surreal situation. "What the hell were you thinking?" I shot at him as he slid into the booth. "You were in my house with my wife." I couldn't help the bitterness that seeped into my words. He looked uncomfortable, but I didn't care. I wanted him to feel the weight of his betrayal. "I know, man. It was a mistake," Jake stammered, looking down at the table rather than meeting my eyes. "I didn't mean for it to happen. We were just talking and then—" "Just talking," I interrupted, incredulous. "You knew she was my wife. You knew I helped you out when you got out of prison. You were supposed to be better than this." He offered weak excuses, claiming he had feelings for her and that she had told him how unhappy she was. But I couldn't let him off the hook that easily. "You think this is okay? How can you live with yourself knowing you hurt someone who tried to help you?" I challenged him, my voice rising. Jake looked ashamed. "I messed up, I know that now, but Lisa, she was different with me, I thought." "Thought what?" I snapped. "That you could take my life, my wife, and toss it aside. You really think she's going to leave me for you? You think she's capable of real love?" He looked defeated, and I realized I was getting nowhere. I didn't want to get into a shouting match with someone who had already betrayed me. I stood up, threw some cash on the table, and said, "I'm done with this conversation." The truth was, I didn't need a conversation with Jake to validate my feelings. I needed to confront Lisa. I returned home, my mind racing. It was time to have the talk that mattered, the one that would determine our future. That night I sat down with Lisa. She was quiet, the weight of what had happened hanging thick in the air. "We need to talk about us," I said, my heart pounding. She nodded but didn't say a word. I decided to lay it all out, to give her a chance to explain herself, even if I knew I wouldn't like the answers. "You had sex with Jake in our bed, you betrayed my trust, and now I need to understand why." Her response was a mixture of pleading and defensiveness. "I was lonely, Matt. You barely pay attention to me anymore. I felt abandoned. Jake was there and he made me feel wanted. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did." "Lonely?" I shot back, feeling my anger surge. "What about me? I worked late hours to support us. I thought we were building a life together, and you throw it all away for a guy who just got out of prison." Lisa sat there, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want this. I was just looking for comfort, and he gave it to me. I didn't think it would go this far." Her words felt like daggers, each one cutting deeper into the trust we had built. "So what now?" I asked, my voice calmer than I felt. "Do we just pretend this didn't happen? Do you expect me to forgive and forget?" Lisa looked at me, desperation in her eyes. "I love you, Matt. I want to make this work. I'll do anything to fix this." But could I believe that? I had to be honest with myself. This affair had shattered not just my trust but the very foundation of our marriage. It was hard to picture a future with her when the wound was so fresh, so raw. I spent sleepless nights weighing my options. Part of me wanted to fight for our marriage, to salvage what was left, but another part of me screamed to get out while I still could. I knew I needed to think things through. I had to decide if I could ever look at her the same way again. I began to seek advice, talking to friends and family about my situation. It was comforting to share my pain, to hear their thoughts. Some urged me to fight for my marriage, while others suggested cutting ties completely. Each opinion pulled me in different directions, and the indecision was maddening. What did I really want? I thought about our good times, the life we had built together, but the betrayal lingered like a shadow, constantly reminding me of the messy reality we now faced. I had to confront my feelings fully, allowing myself to experience the pain without suppressing it. After days of turmoil, I finally reached a decision. I would need to give myself time, but I also needed to see if Lisa was genuinely willing to fight for our marriage. It would be a process, and I wasn't sure where it would lead us. For once, I was ready to confront the truth head-on, no matter how difficult it was. I had to figure out if our love could ever be rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. The days that followed felt like an emotional roller coaster. I wasn't fully committed to any decision. Part of me still wanted to believe that our marriage could be salvaged, while another part of me felt an overwhelming urge to walk away. I started to notice the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Every interaction with Lisa felt strained, filled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I decided it was time to set some ground rules. If we were going to try to work through this, there needed to be transparency and accountability. I sat Lisa down and we had a long, hard conversation about boundaries and expectations. I can't do this half-heartedly, I told her. If we're going to try to rebuild what we had, I need you to understand that trust has to be earned back. Lisa agreed, her eyes filled with a mixture of remorse and determination. I'll do whatever it takes, Matt. I want to fix this. I'm sorry for everything. The sincerity in her voice was there, but it felt like words without weight. Could they really mean anything after everything that had happened? We agreed to see a marriage counselor together. It was a step I hoped would help us navigate the turbulent waters of our relationship. The therapist's office felt sterile and clinical, but I was willing to try anything if it meant giving us a fighting chance. The first session was awkward. Sitting across from Lisa, the therapist, and myself was like standing on a tightrope. One wrong move and everything could collapse. Dr. Adams, our therapist, had an easygoing demeanor but a sharp mind. She started by asking us to talk about our feelings. I shared how devastated I felt, how the betrayal had shattered the foundation of trust we built over the years. Lisa chimed in, trying to convey her guilt and desire to change. But as she spoke, something inside me recoiled. Was this all just a show? Dr. Adams guided us through our emotions, encouraging Lisa to express her feelings of loneliness and abandonment. Listening to her, I felt like I was watching a movie where I was the outsider looking in. But you never communicated that with me. I interrupted, feeling the anger rise again. You kept everything bottled up and then you turned to Jake. You didn't even consider talking to me first. Lisa looked down, shame washing over her face. I know, I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong. I didn't want to burden you with my feelings. The session ended without any clear resolution. It was a small step, but at least we were talking. I left feeling both hopeful and confused. I craved clarity, but clarity was elusive. Could we really fix this? Could I look at Lisa and not see her betrayal? As the weeks went by, I tried to focus on rebuilding our communication. We had daily check-ins where we discussed our feelings, hopes, and frustrations. It was a strange ritual, but it felt necessary. Yet I couldn't ignore the persistent thoughts that lingered in the back of my mind. How could I ever fully trust her again? One evening, while I was scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon a post from Jake. He had tagged Lisa in a photo, a group shot at a bar, laughing with friends. My heart sank. I felt sick. It was like being punched in the gut all over again. I hadn't expected to see that, especially after everything that had happened. I confronted Lisa that night. Did you see this? I showed her the post, my fury bubbling up. How could you? We're trying to rebuild and you're still hanging out with him. Matt, it's not like that, she pleaded, panic rising in her voice. I didn't plan for this to happen. I thought he'd moved on and I was just being friendly. It didn't mean anything. Friendly? I scoffed, feeling the betrayal resurface. You call hanging out with your ex-lover friendly? The guy who hurt me, who broke our trust. This is exactly what I mean. I say we're not healing. Tension filled the room like a thick fog. Lisa fought back tears, the tension radiating from her. I didn't think you'd react this way. I thought you wanted me to move on too. I thought you understood I was trying to be better. I don't care what you thought. Right now, you're not even thinking about me. You're still caught in your past and I'm trying to move forward. My words came out harsher than I intended, but I needed her to understand the gravity of the situation. That night I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I had tried to give her a chance, but it seemed like every step forward was met with 2 steps back. I lay in bed, feelings of frustration, betrayal, and sadness swirling inside me. I knew I had to make a decision soon. The emotional toll was becoming unbearable. The next day, I decided to take a break from the counseling sessions. I felt that I needed some space to process everything. I reached out to some friends, looking for support outside of my tumultuous marriage. They were surprised to hear from me, but they listened as I poured out my heart about the affair and the struggle to rebuild trust. I met up with Mark, a childhood friend who had always been a sounding board for me. Over drinks, I shared my story. "I don't know if I can do this, Mark," I confessed. "Every time I see Lisa, I'm reminded of her betrayal. I feel like I'm living a lie." Mark nodded, understanding written all over his face. "You deserve to be happy, man. If she's not willing to change, or if you can't see a future with her, maybe it's time to think about what you really want. You can't force trust where it doesn't exist." His words echoed in my mind as I returned home that night. I had to face the reality of my situation. If Lisa was going to continue to communicate with Jake, I had to consider whether I could truly forgive her. The path ahead was murky, and I was on the verge of a crossroads. It was time to decide if I was going to keep trying to fix our marriage, or if it was time to let go completely. With the weight of the situation pressing heavily on my chest, I took a few days to really evaluate what I wanted. I found myself oscillating between anger and a desperate desire to fix things with Lisa. Each day felt like a battle, and I was exhausted. I knew I had to confront her again, to lay out everything I was feeling and thinking in a way that couldn't be brushed aside. I called Lisa and asked her to meet me at the park. It was a neutral ground, a place where we had shared laughter and memories before everything went south. As I sat on a bench, watching the leaves fluttering down from the trees, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination building inside me. This conversation was essential, and I needed it to be clear. When Lisa arrived, she wore a worried expression, her eyes searching mine for clues. "Hey," she said softly, taking a seat beside me. "Hey," I replied, my voice steady. "Thanks for coming." We sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of children playing and dogs barking creating a backdrop to our tension. I watched her closely, her fidgeting, hands betraying her nervousness. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I started, trying to maintain eye contact. "And I feel like we've been going in circles. I need to be honest about how I'm feeling." "Okay," she nodded, her eyes wide and earnest. "I'm listening." "I don't know if I can continue in this relationship if you keep hanging out with Jake," I said, my voice firm but calm. "Every time I see you two together, every time you mention him, it brings all the pain back. It feels like you're still emotionally connected to him, and I can't move forward until I know you fully cut that off." Lisa's expression shifted to one of frustration. "But I told you I didn't mean for it to happen. I thought I could still be friends with him. I thought I could handle it." "Handle it?" "Lisa, you're not handling anything. You're dancing around the issue instead of facing the truth," I replied, my heart racing as anger bubbled to the surface. "This isn't just about you anymore. It's about us. I'm trying to heal, to forgive, but how can I do that if you're still in contact with the guy who tore our marriage apart?" She looked down, her shoulders slumping. "I didn't think it would hurt you like this. I promise I'll cut him off. I just thought he was my friend." "Friend?" I scoffed. "You've already crossed a line. It's not just friendship when you've slept with someone, Lisa. You need to realize the damage you've done." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't muster any sympathy. I felt a mixture of sadness and anger. She had caused this situation, and I was left to pick up the pieces. "I need you to understand, this isn't just about you needing comfort or feeling lonely. This is about trust and betrayal. I don't want to feel like I'm just some placeholder while you're still holding on to him." Lisa nodded, wiping her eyes. I know, I messed up and I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make it right." "Then show me," I said, my voice softer now but still firm. "You need to cut off all communication with Jake. He can't be a part of our lives anymore if we're going to make this work." The weight of my words hung in the air. She looked conflicted but nodded slowly. "I'll do it, I promise. I'll call him tonight." I felt a glimmer of hope, but I didn't want to get carried away. "It's going to take more than just a phone call, Lisa. You have to demonstrate that you're committed to us. I need to see you fighting for this, not just saying the right things." As we talked, I realized how much pressure I was putting on her. I needed to be careful not to overwhelm her, but still required her to understand the gravity of what we were facing. "Let's give this a shot," I said finally, "but it has to come from you. I want to work on us, but I need you to meet me halfway." With that, we ended our conversation and I went home feeling somewhat lighter. It was a small step, but it felt like we were finally moving in the right direction. Yet, the shadow of mistrust still loomed over me. I found myself wondering if I could ever really believe in her commitment again. The next few days felt like a test. Lisa was making an effort. She was trying to be more present and engaged in our conversations. She even began sharing small things, her feelings of guilt, her reasons for turning to Jake. I listened, but it was hard to shake the memories of betrayal from my mind. One night she came home and announced that she had cut ties with Jake. I told him we couldn't be friends anymore, she said, looking hopeful yet vulnerable. I blocked him on everything and I told him it was over. I want to make this work. Hearing those words made my heart race, but I was still cautious. What if he tries to reach out? I asked, needing to hear her resolve. You have to be sure about this. I'll handle it, she said, determination in her voice. I want us to get back to what we had before. I love you, Matt. As we continued through this rocky phase, I noticed a glimmer of what we once had. We started going out more, trying to rekindle the spark that had been lost. We laughed together, reminisced about our early days, and focused on rebuilding the connection that had been strained. But as much as I wanted to believe, there were moments when panic would set in. I'd catch myself wondering if I was making a mistake, if I was just setting myself up for more heartache. I had to remind myself that healing takes time, and trust is not something that can be rushed. During one of our counseling sessions, Dr. Adams encouraged us to explore our feelings more deeply. What do you both see as the future? She asked, her voice steady and calm. What does rebuilding look like for you? That question hung in the air, and I realized I didn't have a clear answer. I wanted to believe we could get there, but doubt still lingered. I looked at Lisa, who appeared hopeful yet anxious. I want us to be stronger, to build a new foundation, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Stronger, I echoed, feeling a mix of hope and uncertainty. But how do we get there when the past is still so fresh? When trust is still so fragile? Dr. Adams guided us through the conversation, helping us set small, tangible goals for our relationship. It's about taking one step at a time, she said. Focus on communication, honesty, and rebuilding trust. It won't happen overnight, but progress will come. As we left that session, I realized that I had to actively participate in this process, not just for Lisa, but for myself. I had to confront my own fears and insecurities to learn how to trust again. It became clear that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it, one step at a time. I took a deep breath, embracing the uncertainty, knowing that while the road was long, it was one I wanted to travel together. The weeks turned into months, and as much as I wanted to believe we were on the road to recovery, I often found myself questioning whether we were genuinely making progress or simply putting on a facade. The emotional landscape of our marriage was still riddled with cracks, and I knew it would take more than just words to heal the wounds caused by Lisa's infidelity. One evening, as we sat on the couch binge-watching a show, I noticed Lisa was unusually quiet. I turned to her, sensing an underlying tension. Hey, is everything okay? I asked, my heart racing slightly. She hesitated, looking down at her hands. I've been thinking a lot about our future. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. What about our future? I want us to be successful together, but I'm scared, she admitted, her voice trembling. I'm scared you'll always associate me with what I did. I don't want you to resent me, but I also don't know how to fix everything. Her honesty struck a chord with me. I realized that while I had focused on my own pain, I had overlooked her feelings of guilt and fear. I'm scared too, I confessed. I'm scared of falling back into old patterns. I'm scared that I'll never truly trust you again. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared fears hanging in the air. Maybe we need to be more proactive about rebuilding that trust, I suggested. What if we set some real goals for ourselves? Things we can work towards together. Lisa nodded, her eyes brightening slightly. Like what? Maybe we could take a trip together, just the two of us. A chance to reconnect away from everything, I proposed, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within me. Somewhere we can start fresh, just us. She smiled, and it felt good to see that spark return. I'd love that, just us, focusing on each other. We spent the next few days planning a weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods. Both of us were excited, and it felt like a step in the right direction. We packed our bags, leaving behind the chaos of our everyday lives, aiming to create new memories and hopefully rekindle the intimacy we had lost. When we arrived at the cabin, I felt a rush of relief wash over me. The scenery was beautiful: tall trees, the smell of pine in the air, and a serene lake nearby. I could feel the tension easing slightly as we settled in. We began cooking dinner together, laughing and joking like we used to. It felt good to be in a space where we could just be ourselves, away from the pressures of our lives. That evening we sat by the fire, sipping wine and sharing stories. As the flames crackled, I looked at her, realizing how much I missed this connection. "You know," I said, "this feels nice, like we're finding our way back to what we had." Lisa's eyes sparkled in the firelight. "I've missed this too, just being with you, talking about anything and everything." As the night wore on, we talked openly about the past, but also about our hopes for the future. I shared my fears of never fully trusting her again, and she listened intently, her expression serious. "I'll do whatever it takes, Matt. I want to prove to you that I'm committed to us," she said, her voice steady. I felt a warmth in my chest at her words. It was a start, a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. But I also knew it was just one night, one moment in time. We still had a long way to go. The next day, we decided to hike to a nearby waterfall. The trail was rough, but it was invigorating. We laughed and encouraged each other, enjoying the fresh air and the freedom of being outdoors. As we reached the waterfall, the sight was breathtaking. The water cascaded down the rocks, sparkling in the sunlight. We stood in awe, taking it all in. In that moment, I realized something profound. I needed to let go of the past to embrace the present. I didn't want to carry the weight of betrayal around with me forever. I wanted to find peace within myself, and I wanted to try to forgive Lisa, if not for her sake, then for my own. We took pictures together, capturing our smiles against the backdrop of the stunning waterfall. As I looked at her, I felt a sense of warmth spreading through me. Maybe this was the start of something new. Maybe we could find our way back to each other if we continued to work together. But as we returned to the cabin, that nagging voice in my head reminded me that the journey was far from over. I needed to remain vigilant, to keep our discussions open and honest. The following week, back in our routine, I noticed Lisa was making an effort to communicate more openly. She would send me texts throughout the day, little reminders that she was thinking of me. I appreciated the effort, but there were still moments when doubt crept back in. Would she slip again? Would she find comfort in someone else during hard times? One evening, while scrolling through social media, I saw a post from Jake again. This time it wasn't just a photo. It was a status update reflecting on old friends and the importance of connections in tough times. My stomach dropped. I felt the anger rise again, burning hotter than before. I confronted Lisa. "Did you see this?" I showed her the post, my heart racing. "Why does he keep popping up?" "You promised me you cut him out of your life." "It's just a post, Matt. I can't control what he shares online," she replied, her voice defensive. "I told you I wanted to move on. I'm not talking to him. You have to trust me." Trust. The word echoed in my mind as I wrestled with my emotions. This is exactly why I struggle with this. Every time I think we're moving forward, something else happens that pulls me back. I don't know if I can handle it. Lisa's expression softened, and I could see the frustration giving way to concern. "I'm trying. I really am. I need you to meet me halfway too. Can't we just focus on us instead of looking back at the past?" I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. "You're right, but it's hard. I want to trust you, but I need to see you actively trying to distance yourself from him. I can't do this alone." We spent the rest of the night in a tense silence, both of us wrestling with our feelings. I knew we were still in the process of healing, and it wouldn't be a straight path. But as I lay in bed that night, I realized something crucial. Rebuilding trust was a two-way street. Both of us needed to be committed, both needed to be patient, and both needed to be willing to confront the ghosts of our past if we were ever going to find peace together. It became clear that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was willing to fight for our marriage. I wanted to believe in us again, to find a way to heal the wounds and emerge stronger on the other side. The journey would be long, but I was ready to take it one step at a time. As the weeks passed, I realized that our journey to rebuild trust and connection had its ups and downs, but I felt a newfound determination to make it work. I knew that love wasn't just about the good times. It was also about facing the difficult moments together. I took our recent confrontation to heart and decided we needed to shift the focus back to nurturing our relationship instead of dwelling on the past. I suggested that we try to establish new routines that fostered connection and intimacy, starting with date nights. Let's make Friday our date night, I proposed one evening. We can try different restaurants, explore new activities, or just stay in and watch movies. It'll give us time to reconnect without distractions. Lisa smiled, her eyes lighting up. I love that idea. I think it'll help us find our way back to each other. We embarked on this new routine with enthusiasm. Each week, we took turns planning our dates. Sometimes we went out to eat at a restaurant we hadn't tried before, while other nights we'd cook together and binge-watch our favorite shows. With every shared meal and laughter, I felt the walls we had built around our hearts slowly starting to come down. The more time we spent together, the more I could sense the healing happening between us. Lisa worked hard to be open about her feelings, and I did my best to share my fears without letting doubt dictate my emotions. It was challenging. Trust isn't something that's easily rebuilt, but I felt a shift in our dynamic. One evening, as we went for a stroll around our neighborhood, the sun setting behind us, I felt a wave of nostalgia wash over me. "Remember when we used to walk like this all the time?" I asked, a smile creeping onto my face. Lisa nodded. "I do. It feels good to be outside together again. I've missed it." "Me too," I said, feeling lighter. "I know that we have a long way to go, but I'm starting to feel like we're on the right path." "I promise to keep working on myself for us," she replied, sincerity in her voice. "I want to prove to you that I'm committed. I know I've hurt you and I'll never stop being sorry for that. That means a lot to me," I said, taking her hand in mine. "I think we both have a lot to learn about trust, but I want to believe we can grow from this." As we continued walking, I caught sight of a small cafe that had just opened up. "Let's check it out," I exclaimed, and we made our way inside. The atmosphere was warm, with the smell of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. We found a cozy corner table, and as we sipped our drinks, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. Over the next few months, we continued to build on our relationship. Each date night brought us closer, conversations flowed more easily, laughter became more frequent, and the weight of betrayal began to lift. I learned to appreciate the small moments, the shared smiles, and the comfort of being together. One night, as we were cuddled up on the couch, I turned to Lisa and said, "You know, I think I'm starting to trust you again. It's not all the way there, but I feel like we're making progress." Her eyes brightened with hope. "Really? That means everything to me, Matt. I want to believe in us again. I want to keep moving forward," I said, my heart racing with the prospect of what that meant. As we approached our one-year anniversary since the affair, I felt a mix of emotions, apprehension, hope, and a sense of renewal. I had spent so much time focused on the betrayal that I almost forgot to celebrate our growth. I decided I wanted to mark the occasion, not as a reminder of past pain, but as a celebration of our resilience. I planned a surprise getaway to that same cabin in the woods where we had initially reconnected. I wanted to recreate the magic of that journey while allowing us to reflect on how far we had come. On the day of our departure, I watched Lisa's face light up as we approached the cabin. "You remembered," she exclaimed, her excitement infectious. "I wanted to remind us of the beauty in our relationship," I said, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement. "We've come a long way since then, and I wanted to celebrate that." The weekend was filled with hikes, laughter, and reflection. We revisited the waterfall and recreated some of the photos we had taken before. As we stood there, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. "Thank you for this," Lisa said, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "I can feel how much effort you've put into us." As we returned to the cabin that night, I took her hands in mine. "I want you to know that I'm still a work in progress, but so are we. It's okay if we have moments of doubt. We just have to keep communicating." "I'm committed, Matt," she replied, her voice steady. I want to continue to grow with you no matter how long it takes. In that moment, I realized that love is not just about the highs, it's about weathering the lows together. It's about vulnerability, honesty, and the willingness to fight for each other even when the going gets tough. As we sat by the fire, sipping wine and reminiscing, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The journey wasn't over, but we were building something beautiful together. Through the pain and the heartache, we had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more connected than ever before. I reflected on what I had learned through this experience. Betrayal can fracture even the strongest relationships, but with open communication, commitment, and a willingness to learn and grow together, it's possible to rebuild what was lost. No matter what challenges lie ahead, I felt ready to face them, with love, hope, and the promise of a brighter future together.